everyone. So today we're joined by Jacob Deysel, the Managing Director of Critica Limited. A few months ago, we did an interview with Critica, which was incredibly well received by our members. So I'm really keen to continue that narrative. And this time we're going to really dive into some conversations around Jupiter and what's actually happening right now around rare earths. Welcome, Jacob.
Yeah, nice to be on your show.
Cool. Well, look, why don't we start off by, if you can help me explain and go through to people who are brand new to Critica, like an overview of what your company does and the Jupiter project?
Absolutely. So I think Critica is really we're developing the Jupiter rare earth project in Western Australia. Now, Jupiter is the largest clay-hosted rare earth resource in Australia, but it's also the highest grade. We've got 1.8 billion tons at 1,700 parts per million TREO. Now, the project is located in Tier 1 location, so it's a mining jurisdiction in Western Australia. We've got really strong access to infrastructure, services, export routes. So we're very close to a deep water port of Geraldton, which is only 250 kilometers west of us. And what does really it gives us good logistics and permitting advantages. Now, Jupiter itself is fairly high grade in terms of the magnet rare earths. So that's the 4 magnet rare earths: neodymium, praseodymium, terbium, and dysprosium. We've got about 23% of our total rare earth oxide are these four elements. Now, further to that, we've got a large distribution in yttrium. Now, all of these elements are really under Chinese export control, and they're quite critical in the value-driven products like electric vehicles, wind turbines, defense, AI, and data centers. Now, we've proven our beneficiation first flow sheet. So we very early on reduced the mass by 95%, upgrade the grade by about 6 to 10 times. And that gives us this potential to be a simpler, cleaner, low-cost downstream circuit. Now, previously, you would have seen that we have announced that we've produced our first mixed rare earth product, and this was quite a milestone for us. But we've also shown that we have significant byproduct potential, and we've produced or recovered some of the gallium that's in our resource as a potential byproduct, and we are developing a few other streams. So to me, Critica, we've got scale, but we've now shown that we've got a validated beneficiation flow sheet. We can produce an intermediate concentrate, a mixed rare earth product, but also byproducts. Now, I think the last piece, just to add a little bit more to this, we've got exceptional low uranium and thorium below the thresholds as being classified as radioactive material. And what that means is our product can easily be exported to sensitive areas like Japan, Korea, the US, or Europe. So in short, it's about scale, it's about simplicity, and it's about this Western-aligned development. So we're really very well positioned to become Australia's next rare earth developer.
Thank you. Look, Jacob, before I was about to jump on this interview with you, I did some research. I've been told through grapevine that you live and breathe rare earths. Is that correct from what I can just sense over the last 2 minutes?
I think if you look at my background, so one of the key feedstocks into the rare earth space is the heavy minerals operations, because they normally have a monazite stream. Now, I've been in the heavy minerals industry for the last 20 years probably, and worked at very large operations across this industry. And there was always this monazite stream, which is a feedstock into the rare earths. So yes, my experience in the rare earth space probably goes back about 20 years. And then, then it becomes the metallurgical piece. So, and that's the important thing. And I think my experience has shown me that it's very important that the work we are doing now, that you systematically de-risk these projects. Yep. Because we're moving away from just mining. It is the flow sheet. And the important piece that I've seen with Critica specifically is we've got this perfect match with our geology match perfectly with the metallurgy. And we've systematically worked through. We started with a 50 kilogram sample. We upgrade that to a 400 kilogram bulk sample, and we're now going to a 3,000 kilogram. So it's been an interesting journey for me. I've only been on at Critica for about 4 months now, but it's been fantastic, and it's a fantastic project.
Thank you. Now, look, I want to go back onto, you mentioned scale a lot a few minutes ago. So now, Jupiter is already Australia's largest clay-hosted rare earth resource. Can you please go in a little bit deeper for me? Like, what does that scale really mean for Critica strategically?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing for me about scale is scale gives us optionality. It gives us longevity, but it also makes this project strategic and globally relevant, especially when we look at the West and this custody of supply. Now, at 1.8 billion tons, as you mentioned, Jupiter is really in a class of its own, and it underpins this long life Western supply chain. So I think for me, when I look at Jupiter and Critica, it sends a very clear message to manufacturers, to governments, but also to strategic investors that Critica is really set to be a cornerstone of rare earths, the magnet rare earths, but also these other essential elements that we will talk to a bit more. We can be a cornerstone in that supply chain. Now, further to that, scale, obviously, look at the fact that we can phase this. There's a capital efficient way in which we can develop this project, but there's enormous growth potential. So already Australia's largest and highest grade resource, just Jupiter, but Jupiter is less than 3% of our bigger brothers project. And it's 100% owned by Critica, and Jupiter is only one of 6 discoveries. So to me, it's not scale for the sake of scale. It's the grade that we have, this magnet weighting that we have, the low impurities that we have, the fact that the flow sheet is working. So it means that we're turning scale into usability. And I think that's an important piece.
Thank you. Now, look, I want to go back. So your beneficiation work delivered approximately 95% mass rejection and a major grade uplift. Why is that such an important milestone for development? And if you can talk about it in a very simplistic manner, especially for those of our investors who are not geologists and in the mining industry.
Of course. So I think, to me, it's very important that our beneficiation first strategy has been validated, and I think this is a very important point in the sense that it's a big commercial differentiator for us. So we are a clear, essentially a pure clay-hosted resource, which means that the mineral that we are looking for, the rare earths, as well as these other critical elements, are contained in the fine minerals within the clay. And what that allowed us to do is, through very benign processes, we can wash away the clay and concentrate the minerals that contain the rare earth into a smaller portion. So we have shown consistently that we can reduce the mass by 95%. Concentrate the rare earths and these critical elements into 5% of that. And it's only that 5% stream that will then go through to your hydrometallurgy processes. So to me, it's about very early on after mining, you can reduce the mass. You get a significant uplift in the grade, 6 to 10 times uplift in the grade. And it allows us to have a much smaller footprint when it comes to the hydrometallurgy plant. And that all translates into a smaller plant, essentially, the potential for lower capital, lower operating costs, smaller environmental footprint, and just a cleaner, higher grade feed that goes into your hydrometallurgy piece. So to me, this is a clear reason why Jupiter is execution ready and a development class project and not just another discovery out there. So our next steps, as I mentioned, we've proven that we can do this. We've now have a closed circuit pilot plant, which we've constructed at one of our facilities in Gavacu. And that work that's going through is going to assist us again in our scoping study. So it will help us to get product specifications, and that again translates into early discussions with off-takers. But the work that we are doing at the moment, we validated the flow sheet, and now we're doing further optimization. So this work is already almost at pre-feasibility study level testing. So I hope that answered that question.
It does. So when you talked about that it's clay hosted, that is actually a benefit to Critica.
That's an absolute essential point. So if you look at there's various clay deposits. Now we are clay hosted, but we are pure clay. There's also our ionic clay deposits. Now, in the sense that because our mineral are contained in these defined minerals within the clay, it allows us to beneficiate up front. And there's no other clay deposit really that I'm aware of that is doing this. And this, I think, is a really enduring competitive advantage. And it's not just the metallurgy. It's very important to understand that we have the uniqueness that the geology matches the metallurgy. So not everyone can actually go and do this. In our case, it's a perfect match, and that's that enduring competitive advantage we have.
Thank you. Now, look, you recently produced your first high-grade magnetic rare earths oxide product at 84% of total rare earths oxide. What does this tell you about the flow sheet? You mentioned that quite a lot, so I want to dig into that. And how much does it really de-risk the scoping PFS pathway?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think the production of, and this is our initial product, so it was unoptimized. And to produce a product that's at 84% TREO, at 78% recovery, that to me is a genuine de-risking milestone for Critica. Now, it's proven that this beneficiation first piece allows us to produce this concentrate, and that concentrate then goes through a very conventional hydrometallurgy and a scalable process to produce this mixed rare earth oxide product. So it really shows to me that we have been able to validate that flow sheet, really starting from beneficiation to the concentration, then into this hydrometallurgy or leach piece, into a final product that we can now start looking at discussions with off-takers in terms of product specifications, and then optimize that accordingly. So all of this tells me, as you mentioned, in terms of the flow sheet is integrated, it's workable, it's scalable, and it aligns with what we want to achieve as part of the Western processing routes. But more importantly, apart from just producing our mixed rare earth concentrate and this mixed rare earth product, it's also allowed us to understand that there's a potential for high quality byproducts, and that is in the same flow sheet. It's not a change in scope; it's actually delivered from the same flow sheet.
Sure. And look, Australia and the Trump administration, I'm going off a little bit here, but I really want to give our members a bit of context as well. Australia and the Trump administration signed an agreement which includes $8.5 billion worth of pipeline, joint critical minerals and rare earths projects. I guess I just want to understand, how does that $8.5 billion flow down and impact companies like Critica?
Yeah. I think that's very exciting in this space, specifically in the rare earth space, because the West has realized that incentive pricing and support is required to build the supply chain. I mean, there is no supply chain. There's only two producers at the moment. And as a result, we've seen this in the US. There's floor prices, incentive pricing. The Department of Defense have put a floor price for MP materials, specifically for two of the key ones that I've mentioned that we are relatively rich in, and that's neodymium and praseodymium. A floor price, which was basically a significant premium on what the spot prices have been in the market. So, and then there's obviously with Australia and the US. Australia has long been seen as an ally to the West in terms of supplying critical metals and materials. So with this framework that's in place, I can see that the right projects, the project with the right scale, with the right flow sheet, that is able to advance at a rapid pace are projects that's going to take advantage of this. And Critica really fits perfectly into this mold. So for me, as we de-risk the project and we move forward, I think there's going to be significant grants available to be able to support the development of projects in the West. And Critica, obviously, we are scanning to be part of these processes and making sure that as we progress the development of our project, that we tap into some of this non-dilutive funding that's available.
Thank you again. Now, look, Critica is also co-recovering gallium within the same circuit. How meaningful is this byproduct now opportunity? Because I've spoken to a few CEOs around gallium, so I want to address this with you.
No, very good. I think, first and foremost, Jupiter is an exceptional rare earth project. But adding some of the byproducts that we've seen now is an absolute bonus. And many of these products that we are looking at are really strategic and of strategic importance to the West. So we've confirmed, as you mentioned, that 63% of our gallium has gone into solution. Now, this is the same solution that we've used to actually produce the mixed rare earth oxide. So within Jupiter, we average about 39 parts per million of gallium oxide across our 1.8 billion ton resource. So that gives us roughly about 70,000 tons of this metal that's contained within our resource. Now, gallium itself, just to build that out a little bit, 98% of that's controlled by China. So it is subject to this export restrictions that we're seeing. And of course, therefore, extremely make the West extremely vulnerable to this. So for me, the key is the fact that gallium reports naturally to the same solution that we use to produce our rare earths, with really no change to the flow sheet of scope of our project. I think that's very important. And it creates really a low-cost integrated byproduct opportunity here for us that further would enhance the economics and the strategic value of the project potentially. Now, that said, I think it positions Critica as a Western aligned supplier, not just of rare earths, but really of technical metals in the sense that's really essential to this technology of the future. So semiconductors, the new age processors, defense and medical systems going forward.
Thank you. Look, one of Jupiter's standout advantages is the exceptionally low uranium and thorium levels. How does that actually help from an environmental, social, and governance and permitting standpoint?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think and to me, the low uranium and thorium levels are absolute competitive advantage. As I mentioned to you, I have quite a bit of experience in the heavy mineral space, which is another feedstock supply to the rare earths, and notoriously they are much higher in uranium and thorium. So being able to produce a product that's low in uranium and thorium, as far as I'm concerned, gives us the potential for a premium product. Now, our mixed rare earth product that we've produced is well below the transport and handling thresholds. So it removes a lot of complexity and costs because it's not associated or classified as a radioactive material. Now, from a sustainability and a permitting point of view, that makes for simpler approvals. In terms of reduced environmental liabilities in terms of a lot of this becomes a sensitive tailings product that you need to safely store. So all of that is reduced. It reduces our management requirements in terms of how we manage that, and obviously that gives you much better social license piece. So to me, all of that really positions Jupiter as one of the cleanest, largest scale deposits globally, when you compare to some of the other of our peers that might have a more complex radionuclide profile.
So to summarize it, I mean, we keep talking about Jupiter and the different positive aspects. So it's exceptionally high grade, and the production process is simplified. You've got scale, you've got simplicity, and also the wastage and the negative aspects are actually minimized. Would that be the three trinity?
Yeah, I think that's very good, and I think the one other aspect that I probably would layer over that is just where we are located. So we are in Western Australia. We are in a mining jurisdiction,
Tier
but
one.
apart from that, there's significant infrastructure already established. Now, all of this goes again to the potential of capital cost when you want to develop a project. You know, we don't have to build roads. The rail line is there. We've got gas, we've got power lines, and we've got access to a deep water port just 250 kilometers from us. Whereas a lot of our peers have to actually, the shareholders have to put up money to build this infrastructure. We are surrounded by this infrastructure, and I think that's a very key piece when you think about the development and being development ready, when you talk about Critica.
Excellent. And now, look, you recently completed a heavily oversubscribed capital raise. Can you talk us through the demand you saw and what that really means for that next phase of work for Critica?
Yeah, we absolutely were very delighted with the support that we've seen in the market, both from our existing shareholders, but also from new institutions and sophisticated investors. So we had an 8 million raise, which was heavily oversubscribed. It really brought in and broadened our register. So we brought in 10 high quality extra in institutional investors, which obviously support us alongside some of our supporting investors, the likes of Line Select, North Star, Impact Fund, WGS. So real solid names that's supporting our growth going forward. Now, the raise was completed with certainty, speed, and with scale. It gives us just over $11 million in cash, which really assist us now to focus, hone our strategy, and be able to move that forward. So to me, the message, I think, for investors has been very clear. It's the items that you called out there. Is the scale, it's the simplicity, it's the fact that the flow sheet has been validated, and that we've got this credible development path going forward. So the funding is key for us in terms of one of the main aspects for us. The next steps is the scoping study, and to get there's some metallurgical programs, the pilot program that we've mentioned. There's going to be some targeted drilling here because we want to upgrade Jupiter from inferred to indicated, but also look at growth potential within the bigger brothers, and then that puts us in a position to really start talking about offtake engagements. But it also helps us to get a further line of sight on some of this additional byproducts. So I think it really provides us with this momentum and certainty so that we can transition Critica's development into this development class company.
And look, you said $11 million in cash. Your market capitalization from my last research was around 100 million. What sort of runway does $11 million give you as we now head into the next 12 critical months, literally?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look, I think we're an exceptional team. So when I look at Critica, one of the pieces that attracted me was just the exceptional team we have. It's a small team, so but I've got 3 PhDs reporting to me. But what that means is that the the company expenses is relatively small in terms of running the business. Funding is going straight into what de-risking of Jupiter and how we move that forward. So in terms of where we are funding wise, certainly one of the key milestones is getting to scoping study. But I can see in terms of run rate, it's probably seeing us through to the end of next year, basically.
Tremendous. Now, look, Jupiter represents less than 3% of the broader Brothers project you just discussed earlier. What does the longer term growth and discovery upside look like across this district?
Yeah, look, it's very exciting in the sense that Jupiter is almost like the first chapter for us in what I believe is this real district scale mineralized system. So Brothers, as you said, is 1,500 square kilometers, so it's absolutely enormous. This is the size of Greater London almost, so it's a massive project. And Jupiter is only one of 6 discoveries that we've made so far. So there's real Jupiter South signature across Jupiter. Across Brothers at the moment. So we already see some meaningful potential at some of these discoveries that we've made, specifically in terms of a slightly different distribution. So the geology is relatively similar, the mineralogy is the same, but we see different distributions. So there's slightly higher magnet rare earths in some of these. So we want to explore that a little bit further and just understand what that means. But to me, that's really the potential. Is there's this entire rare earth province. Really, it's not just a single mine, but it's a multiple of that. And to me, Critica is building this long-term growth pipeline, really. And Jupiter is the anchor of that, but we've got this district multiplier, really. So significant growth and optionality, I think, going forward.
And what I really want to explore now is, look, you've said earlier you've only been in the seat for 4 months, so you're relatively new, but you're obviously, you live and breathe rare earths. Can you tell us more about the shift, the team behind the shift, with the 3 PhDs that are now reporting into you, and also the experience that you're bringing to the table after lead in such high leadership roles across so many ASX and globally listed mining companies?
Yeah, thank you. I think, yeah. So for me, it's a case of, we have a very good understanding of the geology, the metallurgy, making that link to the operation piece and development piece, and how do we, then commercialize this. And I think we've covered all of those bases. So as you've mentioned, I've got close to 30 years experience managing, turning around, building operations across the globe. And to me, I think I mentioned this earlier, one of the key things that attracted me to Critica is just the exceptional high caliber technical and corporate team that we have, that really, and I think that really sets us apart. We've got this fantastic asset, but we have a really strong management and board that is capable of actually de-risking and advancing this through to development. So just to call out, some of the names, I've got Dr. Stuart Owen, PhD, chief geologist, and really he's got this district scale understanding of discoveries in the rare earth space. Dr. Natalie Bonici, which is our senior geologist. And again, she's done a lot of work in the geometallurgy. So she's made this link between geology and the metallurgy, which is extremely important. And then Dr. Hen Dien, which is our senior metallurgist with, an excess of 20 years of hydrometallurgy experience. So we really have all of these bases covered as we move this project forward. On the company secretary side and strong governance, which capital market management is really Jamie Bird. So a very strong technical team and an operational team. And then on the board, we've got exceptional depth with our chairman, Tim Lindley, which is enormous financial market and strategic experience. And Nick Sonata, which is also a mining engineer like myself, but he comes with a wealth of experience, again, over 40 years experience. And it's just that, that deep experience that we have that we can tap in from the board's perspective. So 3 PhDs leading the technical discipline. I mean, I think that speaks to the technical credibility. And I think investors have been backing not just this project, because it is an absolute, enormous project with huge potential, but it's also the capability of the team to be able to execute on this project. So to me, it means that, it's really the team taking us from being an explorer to a developer, and now we're moving forward to be a future developer of rare earths.
I wanted to say that you also have the backing of Headley Line Selection Group. I've spoken to him extensively. One of the sharpest mining minds out there. So I think that's definitely him backing the right project with the right team. And look, finally, what are the key milestones that investors should really watch out for in the next 6 to 12 months? And any final words for investors or members that, number one, haven't perhaps bought in and didn't participate in the raise, but are now thinking whether or not they should participate?
Yeah, look, I think to me, it's now with the funding in place, our strategy is very clear. We are moving forward. We have the Cavacu, the 3,000 kilogram pilot plant, which is going to give us a lot of information in terms of this beneficiation first piece. So we're getting that ready to commission that. So that's going to be a key milestone for us. We're moving forward with the scoping study. So really looking at engineers that can assist us with the scoping piece here. There's optimization taking place. And as I mentioned, a lot of the metallurgical work we are doing is kind of stepping into pre-feasibility stage already. So it's very exciting in terms of where we're moving with that, but it is that optimization of the product, and then further really looking at the development of these byproducts and understanding line of sight of how we get the flow sheet to actually deliver on those. So that is very important. And then as another feed into the scoping study is the drilling. So it's the work that's going to do in Jupiter to upgrade that to indicated, which is a key piece for us in terms of the scoping study. But then also the work we're going to do in the Wilder Brothers and just that growth potential. So, and then ultimately how that culminates into our scoping study and get us ready to move into the pre-feasibility. So those are some of the key milestones I think that investors can really look at. As an overlay on that, we will continue engagements with potential off-takers. Now that we have shown the flow sheet is working, we're moving forward to scoping study. So that's a significant piece. So I think in closing, looking at from an investor perspective, this market is absolutely, the rare earths are surging. The demand is structural. It is not cyclical. The West need to build a supply chain. The West need custody of supply. And I think it's going to be the projects that, as I mentioned, that has the scale, that's got the simplicity, so that geology link with the metallurgy, that's got that flow sheet kind of de-risk and be able to move rapidly because we are located in the right jurisdiction, but also this low uranium and thorium, so that impurity levels. Those kind of projects that as an investor, I think really have to have a look at those enduring competitive advantages. And those are the projects that's going to move rapidly forward in order to be part of this Western supply chain. And to me, Critica, if you look at the list, I think Critica ticks all the boxes on that list. So we are very excited. We are very excited about the investors supporting us in this recent raise. Very excited about the new investors coming in that really see the credibility of this project and where we're going, and excited to deliver on those milestones that we mentioned and to keep the market informed of how we're progressing.
Thank you, Jacob. We'll have you back in 6 months to keep you accountable.
I'd love that. Absolutely. Please do.
Thank you.